Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim, and welcome to Tim Talks, the show that's only partially a show, but really is just an excuse for me to talk to some of my very talented friends. And I have another one here with me today. He's a very talented artist that I hope to kind of expose you to today. His name is Roger Brunke, like monkey. I like it.
Yep, I like it too.
So, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
This evening, I should say.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock for me. A little bit
Yeah.
later than I usually do the show. But you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, the joys of parenthood. I don't get much free time till after the baby goes to sleep.
So a family man then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for those who are unfamiliar with who you are, what you do, let's give it kind of a brief little Reader's Digest version of everything that you get into.
Okay. Probably most people will know me under the username of Rogzilla, Rogzilla. I post a lot of stuff on Twitter, although that's under because somebody stole the @Rogzilla username. I just went ahead and I used my regular full name, but I also post on the Rooster Teeth website a lot and on Tumblr at therogzilla.tumblr.com. And I art is really so the way I like to put it. I'm the arter is just sort of like my joking way of putting it, because I could be the artist, but anyone could be an artist. I'm the arter.
Yeah.
No, I draw a lot of character concept design. I do some caricature stuff, and mostly I sketch, and 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 sometimes when I have a moment or two, I sketch.
Well, I mean, practice makes perfect, and it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something.
Exactly right.
All of those things that tell you you have to do something over and over again before you actually know exactly what you're doing to be able to create something that really looks spectacular, man. I have to say, here's how I became exposed to your work.
Okay.
I was doing some things over in the Rooster Teeth office, and there was a picture floating around of all of the caricature busts that you did. And they looked like something straight out of Disney. I mean, they were brilliant. And it's everything from the nice big eyes that look so innocent and happy and very expressive, all the way down to the nice little crinkles in the face. And I mean, Jeff's mustache is amazing. And I mean, we're showing it down there real quick, or so, that way you know exactly what we're doing here. But I mean, it really is spectacular to see that you're able to capture that level of detail.
Well, it's funny because I posted it on the Rooster Teeth website when. Well, actually, maybe I should start by giving a little bit of backstory how the whole thing started. I was sort of experiencing a little bit of an art block. I didn't know what to do one morning, and I had some of the Let's Plays on, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll just sketch, Jeff. So I did a little sketch of Jeff, and I thought, well, that was kind of fun. It was kind of like how it looks like. So I'll do Jack. And then I did, who was next? I think Gavin, and then, or I think it was Michael and Gavin and Ray and Ryan, and finally Lindsay and Carrie. And I kind of looked at that and said, oh, it's not bad. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll post that.
Shaping out to be something pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll post that. I'll get some feedback. And I posted it on the Rooster Teeth website, and Count 3D on the site said, hey,
yeah.
He said, hey, you know what you should do? You should post that on the Reddit. And I was like, really? Oh, okay.
You think it's good?
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't think people would post fan art on the Reddit at all. I just kind of thought, that's where people go to talk about Rooster Teeth. So, I mean, I'm just some asshole who did some sketches. So, I posted it on there, and I posted like just before I went to bed. And I got up the next morning, and it had like several hundred likes and a bunch of comments. Yeah. And I was taken aback. I was surprised because I was not expecting that at all. I overwhelmingly positive comments too. I mean, it's the internet, it's Reddit. I kind of expected,
some sort of kick.
Yeah. But I mean, even the more tending towards negatives would still have positive feedback, but also, the negative were constructive. I think probably the biggest thing I was seeing was people were saying that Jeff looked like a character from. I can't remember now, but the
Wacky Races, Snidely Whiplash.
No, the Fables. I think that the Fables game.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That was one
I
of those
haven't.
that skipped past me.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but I did look it up after people pointed it out, and it's mostly the mustache and the thin face I gave him. But yeah, no, he does look a lot like him. I kind of feel bad. I might redo that one at some point, just to, maybe give him a little bit more meat to his face.
Yeah,
And
yeah, a little bit less gaunt.
yeah, yeah, but and I might also redo Gavin at some point too, because he's very much a cartoon character in
Yeah.
that. But
But I mean, that's part of the fun of capturing really what people would call the essence of someone. I mean,
yeah,
you hate to put it in such esoteric terms, but that's really what it is. You capture someone's personality in one single image.
yeah, and that was a lot of what the creative exercise was about, was to, you know, to really capture, them as a person, or at least especially with the Achievement Hunter guys, their personality as projected in the Let's Plays.
Right,
Because
right, right.
obviously I don't know them personally, but I can't imagine Gavin is really quite as Gavin-y
I
in
will say
person.
this, internet personalities tend to be the actual person plus about 15, maybe 20%.
Yeah,
And that usually is the formula that works because you have to be a little bit larger than yourself, but usually yourself is pretty awesome.
yeah, and I mean that's something that you have to do with art too. If you're doing posing, you can't if you're looking at a reference photo, you can't just draw it. Let's say someone throwing a ball. You might draw them. Stand back a little bit, so you might draw them like this, and that might seem fine, but really you want to really exaggerate
Really
that,
stretch it
because
back, yeah.
you want to emphasize the motion in that case. So I mean that comes through, and it's all about communication, and I imagine it's probably the same with the internet personality, that you want to push that stuff a little bit forward because obviously it can get lost.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you also do other character designs as well. Another one of the ones that I saw when I did a little bit of digging was a nice Godzilla concept
Yeah.
art that looked eerily similar to what they actually went with the movie that they just did.
Yeah, I know not everyone liked it. I enjoyed it, but I also grew up a Godzilla fan, hence my username.
Yes, I was just going to point that out.
It's the sort of the backstory with that is my first internet account ever was on the Godzilla 1998 films website on their forum, and I was thinking,
Oh God, late '90s internet handles. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I was an AOL kid. I got the discs, and then I talked my parents into letting me get on this thing called the internet, and I was never the same. I was
Yeah.
scarred
Yeah.
instantaneously.
It was funny back then. I really wanted to like that movie. I really did, so I ignored so much. But a couple nights ago, I went to the Rift Tracks live event that they
Yeah.
did, and memories, memories, memories. My wife had only ever seen the movie once, and so I was already making jokes about, like, hey, that's a lot of fish, and she's like,
Shut up.
"What?" I'm like, "No, you'll get it in about 15 minutes. It's gonna be hilarious."
Oh, get so much to laugh about with that damn movie.
I know. But yeah.
And so, what are some of the other characters that you've done?
Well, obviously I did both Godzilla and the Griffin. It's taken from the abandoned script. Terry Russo and I forget his writing partner's name, Ted Elliott. They had actually done a treatment for Godzilla way back when Jean de Bont was going to direct. And it was a much more interesting film. I mean, they did some weird things. Godzilla was like of alien origin, and he was created just to fight this giant other monster that was going,
Of course.
weird stuff. But it worked. I mean, these were the same guys who wrote like the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Aladdin. So, I mean, they've got a pretty good pedigree. It's funny because I think pretty much the cast and crew and everyone who was going to do that Godzilla movie, when they left, they all went and did Twister. So,
Well, I mean, damn, you can't deny that
Yeah,
there were some talented people on that.
yeah, it would have been a very different movie if he would have stayed on. But no, there was like a disagreement about the budget, and so he left, and they brought on the Michael Bay before Michael Bay. But and so I mean, the design I did was really sort of based on that script, which just had some of the key Godzilla things, the dorsal fins, the sort of the general upright stature, but
Right.
there was a little bit more dinosaur elements described in the script. So I just sort of latched onto that, and a big inspiration is I've got it over here. Let's see if I can reach it. Yeah, there. Again, like I said, Godzilla fan.
Nice.
This is the official Godzilla Compendium. This came out like in '97 or so. But there's an interesting article in this written by a paleontologist who pretty much described Godzilla as a dinosaur. So, like, said he'd be a Ceratosaurus, if I'm remembering correctly. Described, notice, pointing out, like, the shortened snout and the size of the head versus the overall body proportion. So I looked at that a bit when I was designing this Godzilla to sort of still pay tribute to the original concepts. Even if it wasn't necessarily what Toho had been doing with their design. I mean, they pretty much just said, let's put a T-Rex head on a Guangdong body and put some Stegosaurus plates on there for good measure.
Right. Because sometimes having a well-designed concept in your head, when you start to put pen to paper or, pen, now really mostly interactor pen with tablet, whatever. What are those? Stylus,
yeah.
God, it's late.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Anyway, yeah, when you're putting stylus to tablet, it's really tough sometimes to kind of translate that motion over and get exactly what you're picturing to be what comes out. That's my biggest problem. I can think of these awesome things, but when I actually try and do the motor functions, not so much.
And it took me years and years and years, and for a big part of, and it's sort of been my delay. I'm 30 now, and sometimes it feels like it's way too old to still be trying to get into the game.
I'll be 28 in 10 days. that hit me earlier today.
Yeah,
that feels pretty interesting.
Yeah, no. Here's the kicker. I hit my 5-year anniversary at my current job, which is I work at Standard Insurance.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm you're a mild-mannered insurance man by day, but harder by night.
Exactly right. I need a mask. I got a Batman mask over there. So.
Yeah. So, how long did it take you to acquire all the equipment necessary? I see you have a nice big drafting table behind you there.
Yeah. I've had that for a while, probably since about college. The most recent and probably most pivotal arsenal or tool in my drawing arsenal was my Cintiq, which
nice.
it's a 13-incher. It's not huge, but I mean it's still expensive. But it's I wouldn't have been able to do the drawings I did without that, because I call it the whack-a-mole, where it's that disconnect when you're trying to draw on the tablet without the screen and look at the screen, and I was able to sort of function outside of it, but not quite. And like I said, I've got a 10-month-old, so he was born near the end of the year, and we have things like we own our house and whatnot, and so tax credits added up, and we got a pretty big tax refund this year, and so I poked my wife and said, hey, I can get a Cintiq now. I can get a Cintiq now. I can do better things. Yeah, and she finally said, fine, stop poking me. So I went out and got it. Of course, the huge irony was, like, 2-3 months later, my computer pretty much exploded. It just stopped working. So I had to go buy a new computer too. It's like, I just spent $1,000 on something I can't use now. But I got like a refurbished Mac Mini, and it works fine. I mean, it's not going to power the well, actually it'd probably power the shuttle, but but it's on I probably won't do much video editing on it or 3D graphics, but I can I use primarily Sketchbook Pro, at least for drawing, and it runs that great.
Yeah, I imagine so. And so what are some of the other characters that you've worked on? I mean, we'll continue on down the list to kind of see. There's like the Powerpuff Girl that I think you did as a birthday present for someone.
Oh, it was just sort of one of those random things. Again, it was sort of I should probably be drawing something. And when my son's playing in the living room, it's pretty quiet except for his occasional coos. So my wife and I, we started putting on cartoons. We started to put some other stuff on when he was younger, like Doctor Who or stuff. But as he got older, like the Daleks started to scare him, and we started realizing that he's starting to repeat words. So maybe, like, I don't watch Let's Plays with him in the room anymore.
Right.
I don't need him to learn the word cockbag. So
they're like ruddy sponges. I mean, just soaking up everything they find.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It really is. So we started putting on just various cartoons. And I personally, I love cartoons. I still watch them as an adult.
Yeah.
But we were put on Chowder, which is surprisingly funny. It's really weird comedy. Like, my wife started watching it without him. I would just come into the room, he'd be napping, and she'd be watching Chowder and laughing her ass off. Just like, all right. all right, I'll take it. But my wife had never seen Powerpuff Girls, and I watched that a bit when it was on. So I started putting that
Oh yeah.
on. And I started remembering, yeah, this show's pretty good. It's
Yeah,
pretty
no, this
funny.
show is pretty freaking great. I
Yeah,
think
so
they're bringing it back for a movie sometime soon.
I can't remember exactly what it is.
Something like that.
It's either like some shorts or a new series, but it's getting a slightly tweaked design. It's not
Yeah.
quite as like heavily contoured edges as before.
Yeah. I remember seeing something about that. I'll
Yeah.
find it and put it up.
Yeah, but yeah. So I was just like, you know what? My son seems to be because he was responding to. He was like sitting there bouncing around. He likes to bounce a lot, especially
Bright colors, moving
yeah.
images,
So
squealy voices. No, it's great.
yeah, no, he was enjoying it. So I'm like, well, I need something to draw. I'll draw. I think it was Blossom. So I drew Blossom. I also inspired by another artist who had sort of done it. He had done Princess Daisy from the Mario series, and again, I just thought it'd be fun. I'll sketch that. So I did that, and I did the pose before I really knew like what was going to be happening. It's just kind of like this little jazzy pose. And I thought,
Yeah.
she looks like something from like the old 1980s exercise videos. So I put on the sweatbands and gave her the knee high
The full
yeah,
outfit.
the full outfit. And it was fun. It was funny because I put that on Tumblr and I discovered all the different like random fan sites there are there. Like it was reblogged by like Mario princesses are awesome.tumblr.com.
Oh
So
God.
it
Oh.
I mean
So how does?
you find I've got so much Godzilla stuff. I mean, this is a little bit of a guilty pleasure. I'll just move this out of the way a little bit.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. So we all have our thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Movies. But but it was fascinating, and it's something I sort of love about Tumblr. Is people are really kind of getting out there and being honest about what they like. I think that's fantastic, and no one should feel bad ever if they enjoy something.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you're going to be enthusiastic about something, the only way to be is 100% enthusiastic because then no one can challenge you
Yeah,
and be like, oh, you're one of those halfway. No, I am unabashed in my love of everything Avatar Legend of Korra.
yeah,
Fantastic ruddy series.
yeah. I
And I will defend it to the death to anyone who asks
yeah.
because why not?
And it's sort of like for example I enjoy Doctor Who and I think it's a fantastic show, but I have sort of this joke of I'm a self-hating Doctor Who fan where like I love Doctor Who. I can't stand some of the fans sometimes, but I
No,
mean
that's true.
you know
There's a difference between fan and fanboyism.
yeah, or fangirl,
Right.
which seems to
You
be
can just be someone who really enjoys that
yeah.
particular item and then not really subscribe to the subculture. That's okay.
Yeah, and that's fine too. And it's as if you're finding, especially if you're finding a community who is there with you. If you are the type of person who watches Doctor Who, and like maybe now you're disappointed that they're going older with the Doctor, and you want to find a bunch of other people who will commiserate with you and go, we missed the heartthrob days,
Yeah.
and that's great. If that's why you like Doctor Who, that's fantastic. And you see that too. I was reading actually an old Cracked article today that was talking about the weird response people were having to the casting of Cho Chang in the Harry Potter movies, because apparently, get this, there were people who were upset that the character was cast as Asian.
I
Yeah,
remember there being the reverse problem when
yeah,
they did the Avatar The Last Airbender movie.
exactly. And that blew my mind a little bit, but and obviously because there was this I read sort of the arguments. It was like, oh, obviously she was a white British girl who was adopted by Chinese parents and then named and given a Chinese name. Like, sure, but I mean, again,
You know,
you don't have to agree with them. You can. I personally think that's pretty racist, but if honestly,
yeah.
except for
It
being
just goes to show you that the internet is always going to find something to hate,
yeah,
even if it's the exact opposite of what they just hated on.
yeah,
I
but
mean, they just have to feel that need to I'm gonna pound away on my keyboard and say something negative about this thing because it was a thing that I loved and you ruined it forever.
Yeah, or or the opposite. You see people who hate on things that other people just love, like it's the Twilight thing. I've seen the Twilight movies only with riff tracks, because I have some self-respect.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, sometimes you have to find a way to view something that you may not care about, but you kind of have to
yeah,
see because it's part of the subculture now, and you
yeah,
want to be able to make fun of it with all of your friends.
and and at the same time, I acknowledge something about it, and that it has value because obviously,
Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
exactly, there are people out there, regardless of what type of people they are, those books, those movies resonated with them for whatever reason. And again, it sort of goes back to what I was saying. If they found something that spoke to them in any way, regardless if I read the book and think, well, this is the biggest piece of crap I've ever read, or I go to the movie and I keep thinking, finish your sentence, finish your sentence, finish the fucking sentence. But people still get value for it. And it's, I enjoy the Transformer movies. I acknowledge they are rampant pieces of shit. They are not good cinema in any way, shape, or form. But I go
No,
in.
they are technically movies.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're not
there
as bad as Birdemic, because I saw that one and.
I mean, but they're not on the same level.
Yeah.
I mean, Birdemic was made to be bad. I mean, look at the rash of those that
Yeah.
Sharknado 2, the second one. I mean, that is just a thing that sci-fi is doing now. And
Yeah.
to be fair, they do it magnificently, but Transformers was actually supposed to be considered
Yeah. Yeah,
good.
I remember after the second one came out, got its bad reviews. One of the producers was coming out and saying, how can you say all these bad things?" It's like, because it was a bad movie. I don't,
Very easily,
Yeah.
as it turns out. Very easily.
You had robot testicles. You're just,
Yeah.
it's a bad movie. But that being said, I can sit down and watch the first one at least and turn off my brain and enjoy it. I can fast forward through all the human parts and watch like the forest fight in the second one, or the 10 seconds Optimus Prime is fighting the Fallen, or what.
To be fair, you also just described the most recent Godzilla movie.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I said, I enjoyed it, but it was also for me in that film, the Godzilla film, it was very much a Godzilla movie because I grew up with those, and the honest truth, the Godzilla's not really in those movies a whole lot,
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely took a page from the Jaws playbook of movies writing.
And
I mean, you barely see him, so that way when you see him at the end, it's freaking amazing.
I lost my shit during the Hawaii buildup when there was the tsunami coming in and just a slow reveal. I almost wish they would have done what they did in the original film and not reveal the design. All right, I say
But
original
again,
film in the '98 film, and just not shown the design because that would have been such a great
Yeah.
because they brought in the music and that was a great moment. I loved the slow build up to the fire breath of oh, bland guy's in trouble. Oh wait, there's a blue glow. Let's go see what that's about. And again, the build up of the sound, and I love the slow build. I love that. So for me, that movie resonated. But I also I understand why people didn't like it. It's not
like I
it's not
said
for everyone.
earlier, the internet is always going to find something to hate
Exactly.
about a thing. And if they had gone and shown the monster every frame, they would have been like, "Oh, why didn't they create an air of suspense and mystery
exactly.
around the monster?"
You're never going to please everyone 100% of the time, so don't.
Which is why some people end up getting out of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't please everyone, and you think you can. You go into the business with this heart of gold, saying, "I can do everything, and I can make the perfect movie," and then you just get withered away with time.
Yeah, and it happens, and it's always tragic when that happens because you see so many talented people who had something that they wanted to share, and it just sometimes it doesn't resonate with people. It's a fear of mine, and it's part of the reason why I was so shy for so long about getting my art out there. I didn't think I was good enough. Which
Now, that being said, as someone who started from nothing and has kind of slowly built a way up a little bit, it never hurts to try.
no, it absolutely doesn't, and it's something I've really realized in about the past month or so is what, if you just try, you'll resonate with someone, and going back.
That's the beauty about the internet.
Yeah.
There's a community for everyone.
Exactly
That's how I
right.
get back to earlier.
Yeah, and
Look at that.
like go back to the first batch of busts I did, the Achievement Hunter ones. I posted that on Tumblr, and I did all my tags, because it's
Yeah.
Tumblr, so I tagged each individual person. I tagged achievement.
Oh, that website.
Yeah. So, and I thought, okay, I'll try my best to, so that people who want to find it can find it. Because I
Right.
also, at that time, when I posted, I had like 3 followers. Like, that was it. Within 48 hours, I had more than 100.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, it was one of those things, and this sounds, I think, like bragging a little bit, but it was just sort of like the most surreal thing for me. My phone was unusable for a day. Every time I looked at my phone, I had new notifications about someone either liking or reblogging a post. And what's funny is a lot of people reblog without comment. But if I
Right.
clicked the reblog, they commented in the tags, which is why don't you just comment so I don't have to go, but
Bec-
and it was like, oh, these are so cute, or oh my God, this is awesome. So now, anytime I see someone has reblogged something of mine, I have to go, okay, well, did they say anything in the tags? Yay! Which maybe that's the point of doing that.
I mean, possibly because then you have to go to their page. Yada
And they get a
yada.
hit, but I mean,
Exactly.
it's the nature of the beast, and
Right.
obviously I've gotten some interest there, and I will continue to. And obviously, it's what's nice about Tumblr, and sort of the same thing about things like Twitter or any other site where you follow people in essence. I think
Right.
Rooster Teeth's site to a certain degree does it as well. You sort of dictate what your timeline looks like. So, on Tumblr, I found artists who work I like, and I started following them. So I get their work and I follow them on Twitter as well. And there's some really great artists on the Rooster Teeth website too, who I follow, or I try to add as friend whenever I can, but some of them have the hey, no random friend request. I'm like, ah,
Of course.
shit. So I follow. I'll just cyberstalk them.
Well,
But
I mean, artwork is artwork, and you
yeah,
appreciate it when it comes out.
oh yeah, and it's funny. I had an interesting moment, maybe a month or two ago when an artist I follow said, "Hey, who are your inspirations?" And I said, "Oh, I really like Adam Hughes. I
Hmm.
really like Mike Mignola. I really like Sean Cheeks Galloway." And then I said, and I really like you. You're a big part. And I really like another artist, Claire Hummel. Goes by the username Shunla. Most people might actually recognize some of her art because she designed the twins from BioShock Infinite. Yeah,
Oh,
she also did a big series that sort of made its way around the internet of the historically accurate Disney princesses.
right,
Yeah,
right. I
yeah,
remember those.
yeah. And so she's a fantastic artist, and I absolutely love her work. And the artist who originally posted goes by the name Nicholas Cole. He does like concept and character art and comics for a video game called Dawn Gate. I'm not
Right.
familiar with the game itself, but I discovered his artwork because he had done some Harry Potter fan art that I was just like, oh hey, that's pretty cool. And for me, the big thing I look for in Harry Potter fan art is not movie designs. If they I love the movies. They're great visual representations of the books, except for the costuming, because the books really specifically describe a culture outside of the Muggle world, where everyone who grew up in that culture doesn't understand pants. That's a major joke that comes up, and then
Yeah.
I go to the movies, and pretty much they're wearing a suit
Pants.
a suit with a cape, and it's
Yeah.
not wizard robes, and it feels like there's just this great lost potential to really design something, really world create. I love world creation. It's why I
So
love
speaking
the
of
book.
that,
Yeah,
you are working on your own original creation.
yeah. It's at least right now the working title's Trinity. It's
Hmm.
it's um it's sort of a supernatural urban fantasy thing. It started off way 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 long ago as sort of a young adult superhero story in essence. When I was about in high school, I realized, because I'm interested in folklore and mythology and theology. It's sort of I just when I have free time, I just start reading that stuff. It's fascinating to hear about all the different cultures of the world and just sort of how the stories influence, because stories are a major part of how we sort of united as
They're a
people.
major part of every culture. I mean,
Yeah,
it's literally how history was passed down until we developed writing.
exactly right. And so, I was interested in that, and I started doing just sort of general stuff into like angel mythology. I thought that was really interesting, and I realized,
Hmm.
oh, Superman's name is Kal-El. all the angel names, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, and I think it's Sumerian hyphenates it like Kal-El, so it would be Micah hyphen El,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I realized,
And he came down from the sky and was
exactly, and
flew and yeah.
and
No, that makes wow. I
yeah,
never really thought about that before.
and like by the time I got to college, I did this. I went to probably the worst possible art school, which is a state school, but
Somewhere that really cultivates your want to do art.
yeah, or they wanted me to do installations. I wanted to do comics and
Right.
cartoons and whatnot. But I did a series where I sort of redesigned Superman, and I gave him a three-layered cape so that when he was sort of floating, he would have what looked like, in essence, six wings, like a
Yeah.
seraphim. And so, I really like that idea, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just maybe make this a little bit more literal? Because, obviously there's the Christ metaphors that you get with Superman nowadays, and he was created by two young Jewish men, I think in the Bronx at the time, but somewhere in New York. So, and there's obviously the Moses aspect of it, being put in the bassinet and sent off
Yeah.
to, a better life. And I thought, let's just get this angel aspect a little bit more. So I said, okay, let's say we're in a world where there's gods and demons and angels and all these supernatural things. And as I started doing things like reading more Tolkien and whatnot, I started bringing in fairies and whatnot, and just sort of really started building this supernatural world. So all this bad stuff is out there. They want to hurt us, and the angels want to help, but they can't because that violates free will. So let's say they appoint a guy just once a generation, just, hey, you have a random genetic modification that gives you angelic powers. In this case, I decided that was like in essence a bigger soul. It gives him the ability to manipulate energies and whatnot. So like he can make it seem like he's really strong, but he's just kind of manipulating things. So
Right.
And like I said, originally it was a young adult, and it was supposed to be sort of this coming of age thing about a young boy is just sort of trying to deal with all this stuff. And I actually wrote a finished manuscript of that. It was going to be a first story, an origin story, start to finish, and I completed it, and I read it, and I reread it, and I was working on a sequel, and I realized I didn't like it. It wasn't the story I wanted to tell anymore.
Oh, I hate when that
Yeah, and
happens. Oh
when
God,
when
that's
I
the
was in high
worst.
school and college, and I had, angst.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the time
And
that
you
was
just look back at it and you're like, this is the worst crap that anyone has ever crapped on a cracker.
exactly. And here's the worst part: David, the main character,
Hmm.
he wasn't interesting. You know who was
No,
interesting
never is.
was the female lead, Celeste. She's more interesting. She has the cooler backstory. She has a lot more going on. She has a lot more emotion. Dave's just a whiny little asshole. So I started rewriting it with Celeste as the main character. She didn't get the powers. David still has the powers, but
But it's told from a different perspective
yeah,
now.
she brings in um, the mundane. She brings in, and you'll see a lot of storytellers use this type of character of someone who doesn't know about the universe that you're introducing the audience to as sort of, I forget what the term is for it, but as a person who helps the audience get into it, because
Hmm.
you can give exposition to this character and thus to the audience.
Right.
But like at one point, I was going to have her, when she was in the original storyline, she was eventually going to get some powers of herself. I've decided she is going to stay completely mundane. Everything else around her is going to, just kind of like open up. I'm introducing other characters who can, get the powers that she was going to get, or who can sort of help. But she will remain resolutely, mundane and normal, because she's going to be the character everyone else is going to connect to, because she's more interesting, and she can bring in the comedy. She can bring in, this sort of observation. She can point out when things don't make sense. Like, wait a minute, you're monologuing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
she can, in essence, be my voice whenever I want to point out a cliche that and she's just so much more interesting and fun. She's at her core, she's a bright character. She's very happy. She's very intelligent,
Yeah.
and it almost sort of became this idea of, this challenge to write a great, strong lead female character who isn't the fighter. I have another female character, Jasmine, who's a witch. She's the fighter. She's the tough broad. Here is a character who is heart and soul, and the biggest thing that she does is provide support for everyone around her. And that's the type of character I really want to do. So, like I said, it completely changed the type of story I want to tell. And, I bring a little bit of myself to her. She's, I think in the news story, she's about 27 or so. She's been working a job that she doesn't really like very much, but she does. And she's gotten very comfortable in her life. When the story starts, she's recently broken up with a boyfriend, but she's fine. She's moving on. And, pretty much the whole thing starts by one of her friends who is very successful in her career, has been married for a little bit, and now is telling her that she's pregnant. And, pretty much all these things that Celeste goes, geez, that'd all be really nice, wouldn't it? But, she's, and not to say that, all women want to, to get married and have kids. It's,
That's just a particular circumstance that has to be happening to this character.
Yeah, and it's more just, here's this, my friend who's moving on with her life, who's done with college and done with adolescence, more or less, and is, being an adult, and here I am, coming home at night and just playing video games or, just not doing much. And so, her friend takes her out to sort of celebrate, and she gets hit on by some guys and whatnot, and finally she just sort of gets fed up with it and goes home. And on her way home, she gets attacked by a vampire, and
and that's when things start to go way haywire.
And the whole plot of the first book is, David, completely cloaked and whatnot, is going to show up and swoop in and save the day. And sort of the establishment of this universe is most people will, when something like this happens, dismiss it. They'll say, right, oh, it was swamp gas and light of the moon, and I didn't actually see a glowing person, fight off, somebody who was, looked like a rotting corpse. But, Celeste, being a little bit of a nerd, a little bit of, intelligent person, kind of goes, wait a minute, that just happened. That was a thing. So she's going to do something that doesn't happen. She's going to start talking about it. She's going to start making a blog. She's going to start investigating, and that makes her targets by all the other supernatural predators because they don't want their secrets out there. Because if people know about them, they can stop them. And we would need people like David because, everyone knows how to stop a vampire, but if you don't think they exist, why bother?
How are you gonna?
Why would you keep a cross near you or some garlic or So it's just sort of this fun, and it's mostly supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be overall lighthearted. There's going to be some drama. Obviously I'm dealing with angels and demons and gods. There's going to be an apocalypse at some point.
The thing that I find interesting is that you'll be able to take all of this detail that you poured into the world that you've created and put it into a visual medium. I mean, you have your own conduit straight through,
and it's finding the character so much is through my I sketch and I listen to music, and I purposely try to find music that I can build a scene around. Either it has an emotional resonance with me, or it's got the right build up to ultimately a big climax, or I listen like rock and roll because that's good fight music, and I listen to some pop music, and sometimes it'd be fun, have a little fun little scene, and I storyboard with that, and I just do some light sketching, or I'll just outline a scene. And, if no one's looking, I act it out,
Yeah, of course. And then before you know it, you have a full thing.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've created this magical little animation.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. It's at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to write another book or if it's going to be a web comic, which is something I've teased around in my head. Just sort of, okay, I could do it on make a backlog for myself, obviously, so I have time. But just maybe once every other day, or on Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, something like that. Just release a page of a comic, and see if that resonates with people, and hopefully it will. Or I might try doing an animation. I might try to see if that's possible. It'd be interesting to try and round up voices. But it'd be fun, to do it as an animation. I think ultimately my dream would be to see it as an animation. But it would also be as a dream to see it as sort of a bigger budget animation,
Something a little bit. But that being said, you can definitely see the influences that you've drawn from that have worked.
Yeah,
You look at the old Disney movies, the Black Cauldron
yeah.
is a fantastic example where you can see a lot of the different sketch lines and things the imperfections are what give it the character that makes
Yeah,
it lasting.
yeah, and it's something I think is common among artists is, you've got that sketch and sketch looks beautiful and it's wonderful and you do, okay, I'm going to ink it, and then you ink it and like, what the fuck just happened to my work? What I don't even, it was beautiful and now it's just muddy. It's like, and it's weird. Even though there's less lines, it's muddier somehow, and I hate inking. I really do. And so I've been trying to develop a way that I can color my work with it still being sketchy. And I'm actually sort of getting along the way. I've been doing a digital painting course actually, because with art you're always growing. I've got to give a huge plug actually for someone.
Yeah.
His name's Chris Oatley. He used to be a Disney animator. He did designs for I think like a lot of the Tinkerbell things, and I think of some stuff for cars. But he ultimately decided just that he liked teaching more, so he quit, and he set up. He does a podcast. It's called the Artcast. You can find it on iTunes, and he's got a website, just chrisoatley.com, and he does various quick tutorials, but he also has a classic sign up for that I'm doing right now. It's called the Magic Box, and it's a reference to the computer being this magical thing that you do some strokes, and all of a sudden you've got this beautiful magical thing.
Right.
And it's like it's $15 a month, and it's an 18-month course, and just pretty much every time your bill cycles up, you get the next month unlocked, and in like the 3 or 4 months I've been doing it, I have understood and grasped more, not just about digital painting, but painting in general, than I really got out of school in general. And I mean, for $15 a month, that's a steal.
Yeah.
I see.
And I will say this, I mean, the results speak for
Yeah,
themselves.
and
You know?
it's so much is, and he in the second month there was talk about how to do things in Photoshop, but most of it was talking about John Sargent and other artists, and saying, look at what these masters were doing with their artwork, talking about designing brush strokes, talking about making a deliberate stroke, and if you need to, practicing it, it's going stroke, figuring out what you're going to do, and then make the final line. So you're making more with less, and it's been amazingly eye-opening. The last month I did was all about masks and making a character design by just pretty much scribbling with a selection tool, making a mask, coloring it, and then just building a character out of that, and just sort of just a quick concept. And it's fascinating how well that works in terms of just sort of, because you develop that silhouette, you develop the shapes, and you start thinking about, okay, maybe this is going to be a little bit more sinister character, so I'll make it a little bit sharper, a little more triangles and
Right.
whatnot. And I'll
Start to do the cleanup and suddenly,
yeah, and it's really interesting how that works. So not being paid, obviously, but it's definitely something anyone who's interested in digital painting should absolutely do.
yeah.
And he, again, he brings in a lot of experience of being a professional character designer, and working for Disney of all places. I mean, that's bloody fantastic. And I love that he said, yeah, I'm working at one of the biggest animation studios in the world. Nah, I'm just gonna go teach. So
Well, sometimes when you have a gift, you just want to
yeah,
pass it along.
yeah, and teaching it's also a great way to learn, because I've done a little bit of teaching here and there, and you realize when you're showing someone how to do something, you realize, oh wait, that, and something will click sometimes more,
Yeah.
something that didn't click in the past, and there's that almost like a cliche, those who do can, those who can't teach, and that's bullshit, because so like my dad could. My dad is an electrical engineer. He got a PhD from the Institute of Technology in Zurich, which, in order to do that, it's in Switzerland. He doesn't speak German, but he had to write his paper in German. He had to take his classes in German, and he had to
Eh.
defend his thesis in German. So again, and I was a teenager when he was doing this. He was learning German, taking classes, writing a thesis, and doing all this stuff at once. And also, after he got his PhD, he taught because
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay,
But that just shows how how much you have to work when you really want something bad enough. I mean,
exactly.
you have to be willing to put all of your effort into it, and it can sometimes leave you drained afterwards. But you know what? The just the blood, sweat, and tears you poured into it will make the whole experience worth it. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And as I've sort of been doubling down more and more on my art, and with being a father, I find that there's less time available because I gotta spend time with my kid or something. I don't know. But
And so it makes it much more critical to use your time wisely.
yeah, and I still have to do things like find time to work out and find time to do my drawings and eat and sleep and whatnot, and spend time with my
Yeah.
wife so that she knows, hey, I love you, please don't leave me, I need you. But like, and I found sort of ways to double up on things. I listen to podcasts or audiobooks. I get all my book right now through Audible because I can listen to a book. I listen to Dresden Files, to Game of Thrones, Harry Potter. I recently got,
Whatever flavor of the
yeah,
day.
just whatever was floating my boat at the moment. And I listen to that, and I'll draw. And sometimes and I'll listen to Harry Potter. And go, oh, yeah, I'll draw myself a
Do,
little
do, do, do,
Dumbledore.
do.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
it looks like Stephen Fry because that's who should have been cast.
Eh.
Yeah, but it's so that way I get my book entertainment.
I
Or
would actually really like to see Stephen Fry's Dumbledore.
yeah, I
Did
watch my
Is
Twitter
that something you actually drew?
a while ago, and maybe watch my Twitter because it's something I've been thinking about drawing again. So
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
at
want to see
Roger
that.
Brunke. But yeah,
So I think we'll use that as a nice little segue point to get out of the show.
yeah,
I really love the Inside the Actor Studios method,
okay.
however, of ending on the questionnaire. So I too have a reappropriated version of the Proust personality questionnaire.
Oh dear.
And it goes a little something like this. Roger, what's your favorite word?
Smock.
Smock.
Yeah, smock, smock, smock,
What,
smock, 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 smock. I attribute
what's
that
your
to
least
Calvin and
favorite
Hobbes a little
word?
bit, but it's a fun word.
What's your least favorite word?
Mississippi.
Is it because of the spelling?
Yeah,
Or the dumb rhyme about the spelling?
MISSISSIPPI. I just it's no offense, people living in Mississippi. I'm sure it's a great state, but just it's a weird word, guys. Get a better name. Lose some I's and S's, it'll be fine.
What sound or noise do you love?
I can't repeat that on any show online.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Um, this is a testament to being a father. I can't stand it when my baby screams. It's I was trying to put him to bed earlier, and we're sort of trying to do the thing where he's supposed to cry, but boy, he was upset, and I just went back in. "No, it's okay, Daddy's
Yeah,
stop crying."
there's something about that squeal. It enables something inside of you that you're like, I thought that part of me was dead a long time ago.
Well, it's funny too because when we were at the hospital, one of the things they made us do before we left with Xander is they made us watch this video that was pretty much "Don't shake the baby." And we're thinking, we're not going to shake the baby. That's not going to be possible. And then you get him
And yet,
for 24 hours straight, and you go, oh, dear God, no.
don't shake the
Oh,
baby.
oh, oh, oh.
Yeah.
And then you go take
Yeah.
a break. And it's one of those things we sort of laughed at the moment. It's like, oh, no, we're really glad we got that lesson. Because, I mean, I don't think we would have necessarily shaken the baby, but it made us more aware that no matter what type of person, what type of parent you think you're going to be, you are going to get upset and you're going to feel what the baby's feeling and you're going to be exhausted and you're going to need that reminder to go, okay, put the baby down. The baby's fine. You can put him in the crib. He's going to cry.
That's just babies.
Just go take a minute. And yeah, it's, I mean, again, I really don't think we ever would have shaken the baby, but it's just sort of like, oh, this is what.
That's a thing that some people do.
Yeah, and
Oh.
that was part of the video too. Is that they had interviews with people who did it, and it's just like, oh, and it's tragic.
So what superhero do you identify with the most?
actually identify not just the one that I want to be. Just
Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say, I want to be, I want to be Superman.
Yeah, I know those are two completely different
Or,
questions.
or let's be honest. I want to be the Superman Batman combination because why not? Um, but honestly, Beast Boy. I always
Hmm.
liked him. And
And what villain?
oh, villain. Looking over at my comic books real quick. I don't know, and that was a really annoying sound. I apologize. um, I don't know. It's kind of a cop out. I don't know if I ever really identified with a villain.
It's a fun question.
It is
I
a
like it.
question.
It's sometimes it stuns people.
Yeah.
So we'll move on then.
Yeah.
What turns you on, either creatively, spiritually? What gets your gears turning?
Well, I sort of touched on it before, but stories.
Hmm.
Mythology, folklore, theology. There's been times I've grabbed a spiritual book and sat down and just read it, just because it's interesting because one of the weirdest experiences I ever had in college was twofold. One was being in a physics class and have someone ask why there were letters in that equation. And this, I
Hmm.
mean, it was algebraic physics, but it was still college level. And the professor kind of just stopped and went, "What?" But
Yeah.
the other sort of thing that sort of caught me off guard was um, I was doing sort of a philosophy class, more or less, and we were reading a book that was discussing the concept of original sin. I was raised Catholic. I don't really practice anymore, but pretty much my parents were Catholic. They said, "Okay, here's our religion. This is what we believed. Go figure it out for yourself." So,
Yeah.
I really like that method. But I was familiar with concepts like original sin and whatnot. It was a big part of my childhood. So when I got to college and we were doing that class, and people didn't understand what original sin was, and we had to stop and pretty much get a Bible lesson on Genesis, and it was just it was one of those things that I sort of thought, wouldn't it be great? Obviously we want separation of church and state, and don't want to teach religion in schools, but didn't the Bible really influence Western society in a major way? Shouldn't that be taught at least in a literary sense to understand? Because I mean, we did things like we get exposed to classical mythology, for example. We learn the pagan beliefs of Zeus and Hera and Hercules and whatnot, and I understand that's absolutely be a way more difficult way to do it without bringing in those emotions that get tied in so much with religion nowadays, especially.
Hmm.
But wouldn't it be great if we could just understand or help make sure everyone understood these are the stories that influenced our culture in a lot of ways, and maybe we don't do it because people assume that they're being taught in some way, in some form. But I mean, I don't know. It's one of those weird things, and like I said, I completely understand. There's a lot of emotion tied into it. I've personally separated myself a little bit from it. Going on my ever ongoing spiritual journey for understanding and growth. It's sort of why I sort of got into mythology and theology and folklore and whatnot, because
Right.
I started reading more and more about all these different religions and belief systems and got really interested in them. I don't want to say where my spiritual beliefs lie one way or another, but it's not something I like to discuss. And if my
No.
and
The fun part about that journey is it kind of takes place within
it,
yourself.
it, it's
And all you
that's
have
the
to do is just go on
yeah,
it.
and
Most people put too much pressure on themselves to subscribe to one thing or another.
yeah,
And
and it
sometimes you just have to not worry about it.
exactly, and if you make a decision one way or another, there's God, there's gods, this specific gods, that specific God, whatever. That's again, it goes back to what we were talking about before. If you find something that works for you, go with
Dude,
it
you'll find
and
other,
stick
yeah.
with it.
And you'll find other people who love it too. And you'll
Exactly.
find a community. And
Exactly right.
suddenly you're happy.
And and if pretty much our family motto, and we stole this from Archer, but we actually have it in needlepoint up in our living room. And once my kid learns how to read, we're moving that into my office. But
Hmm.
it's don't be shitty. It doesn't matter what you like, what you don't like. Just whatever you decide to do, whatever you decide to think, that's perfectly fine. Just don't be shitty. You know,
So then that leads perfectly into my question. What turns you off?
people being shitty.
Yep. Yep.
It's whether
Pegged it.
it's forcing your beliefs or lack of beliefs onto someone, or if it's being racist or being prejudiced in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And
Don't care
yeah,
for it
yeah,
too
no,
much.
it's something I got from, again, studies, the concept of Buddhism of the middle way. I really like. I
Hmm.
don't try to get into extremes. I don't like getting into political discussions. I don't like getting into theological discussions, or anything like that. I mean, I'm more happy to discuss the stories. I'm always happy to discuss that. And it's been surprising how often I can connect to someone by, you know, I there was someone I used to work with who was Islamic, and he was surprised to discover. I've forgotten a lot since then. It's been about a decade, but how much I knew about his religion, because it was something I was reading, and it wasn't one I was personally subscribing to, but he felt a connection to me because I had at least shown interest in it, and had
Right.
done the research, and he was a really nice guy, really great, and we were able to have the discussions, and it never turned into why don't you believe what I believe? It was just, I was able, I was aware of what a jinn was. I was aware of the story of Iblis and some of the concepts of, the stories around Muhammad and whatnot. And it was all fascinating. It was all fascinating for me. And I was able to discuss it with someone who wasn't shitty about it. And
Yeah,
so,
that becomes a very fun and liberating conversation to have
absolutely.
because it just it doesn't devolve anywhere. It becomes a genuine discussion. And
Yeah.
that's when two people can actually connect. And that's something that doesn't get done often enough. So when you actually get the chance to indulge it and
Yeah.
enjoy it,
The, the problem
my
is,
God, you just want to bite it in deep.
yeah, the problem is you get the two shitty people who throw shit at each other, and everyone watches that. You get the extremes going at each other, and that's entertainment. And I don't watch that particular brand of entertainment personally, but
No,
it's entertainment.
no.
And again, people watch it. They get a kick out of it. Whether it's, hey, I side with, what was that recent thing? It was the Bill Nye and the other guy that sort of exploded.
Ken Ham?
That was it. And it
Yep.
was just, I only knew about it because Twitter was talking about it. And I honestly, the range of people I follow, I got both sides.
Yeah.
And and it was these people who were really getting interested in it. And I was just like, okay, yeah, that's
So,
cool.
what advice would you give to your 13-year-old self?
Don't go to state school. Um, be willing to take the plunge. Don't be shy. Because that's been my biggest downfall. Well, to, eh, maybe tied. I spent too much time trying to emulate another artist's style rather than trying to find my own. Because,
Mm.
and I think maybe the biggest piece, at least in terms of creativity and art, would be to tell him art isn't about being good. It's not about being technically good. Art is an ever ongoing exploration to express yourself,
Yeah.
even if it's
Something I've always found is that it's fun to take the things that you're inspired by and the things that you love and kind of try and emulate them as much as you can, but then throw in flares of yourself.
yeah.
And suddenly, before you know it, you have your own style.
Yeah, and you should push technique. You should push good composition and color theory, but it's those are tools to help you find a way to express yourself. If you're doing character design, cartooning, comic books. Even though when I was in college, I had a lot of people tell me that's not art. It absolutely is art. It's just another way for people to express themselves through storytelling, and you know, if you find the tools and you find a way to get yourself out there, as
Just do
yeah,
it.
as
Just
I've discovered
freaking do it.
lately, you'll resonate with people. You'll make those connections, and it's been interesting. It's funny to hear that my artwork was apparently being passed around Rooster Teeth. I was sort of vaguely aware that maybe they might become keen to it, but it's funny to say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's being passed around. People were commenting. I was like,
Yeah. No, it was really
yeah,
enjoyable.
no, and
And so, where would you one day like to live?
I live in Portland now. I would love to stay here for the rest of my life. I'm aware that, given my fields of interest of animation, film production, there's a possibility that I'll have to move to Burbank, California, or British Columbia, there's a fair amount of animation up there. Austin, Texas, there, obviously there's a really big film community down there. I mean, I'll be honest,
Mhm.
I'd love to work for Rooster Teeth. It's not the only studio I'd love to work for. I'd love to work for like Disney or
I mean,
DreamWorks.
work in your
Yeah,
field these days seems to be what constitutes success.
exactly.
So
And
anything would
I
be lucky.
I what's nice is in Portland I've got Leica up here. They do
Mhm.
Coraline and they've got Box Trolls coming out too. So I it's one of those things. I have to wonder, is my style the type of thing that they would go for? Because they go a little bit darker, a little bit more. Um, Tim Burton might not be the right word for it, but just that sort of, yeah,
Anglier.
anglier style. I don't know if I'd necessarily be the right voice to go for, but it does mean that once I
You wouldn't like to try?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's always fun to kind of bend yourself in new directions
Yeah,
and
and
such.
and I mean, obviously, that if I got brought on to do character design for a Leica movie, I'm sure they would give me the style journal or the style Bible, and uh, make sure that I was on the same page. But I mean, yeah, I'd also love to work for Disney. I'd love to work for DreamWorks. I'd love to work for Nickelodeon. I'd love to work for, Sony recently announced they're doing a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I'm a big Sonic fan. Well, hey, Sony. Um,
So, fun
yeah,
question. What's your favorite curse word?
fuck a doodle do.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And our last question here. If you had the choice, how long would it take you to respawn after you died?
Oh, we're gonna get into potentially spiritual discussion with that.
Well, I mean, you
That,
really don't have to.
yeah, I know.
It's kind of,
Oh, it's
whatever rules you want to impose on.
yeah. I mean, if it was one of those things where it was like a near-death experience, I'd like to stick around long enough to ask a couple questions. Like
Mhm.
what the fuck with the platypus. Um, but I mean, if assuming that there isn't a discussion with any sort of higher power or universe in general, a couple seconds. I
Yeah.
want to get back out there. If I get fragged, yeah, right, come on. Yeah, that's right. We're wasting time. I could be doing stuff right
You're
now.
one of those that just sits there hammering on the A button until that dialogue box comes back
Yeah,
up.
it's like, come on, come on, come on.
Yep.
How am I going to frag the guy back? Come on, come on,
Yep.
come on. All right. Oh, I got fragged again.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our program. And I want to thank my guest, Roger Brunke, for coming on today, man. Thank you
It's
so
been an
much.
absolute pleasure. This is my first time ever doing something like this. I had a little bit of liquid courage helping me out. I hope I wasn't um, too talkative or too annoying. I mean, honestly, I
Absolutely
was
not.
worried about being.
The thing is, it's really fun to get inside the mind of someone who is able to create such depth and such detail because you need to understand where the inspiration comes from before you can truly appreciate the work that comes from it and also how to emulate it yourself. People say, "Oh, I don't know how I do the magic that I do." It's all the hard work and
Yeah,
all the effort and all the research and all of that gets funneled into one thing and becomes amazing.
yeah, and
So
I mean
talk all you
yeah,
want.
the difference between talent and not talent is really how quickly you catch on to things and where your starting point is. Anyone
Yep.
can draw, anyone can paint, anyone could be a scientist or be whatever they want to be. You just have to accept that sometimes there's
It
always
takes a
gonna be
lot of
people better
work.
than you.
It takes a lot of
Yeah,
work.
and two, well, also better is a relative term because they might be better at you in one thing, but not another thing. Everyone's gonna have a specialty, and that's a big thing. So you have to sort of discover that for yourself. But I mean, the other thing is just do the hard work, do the work. There's not gonna, I see a lot of artists who sort of get asked the same question of, how do I get as good as you? And it's like everyone wants the magic word that somehow that they're going to go meet their idol and they're going
That
to
unlocks their
yeah
hidden
they're going to
talent
tell
that
them
they
the
never
one
knew they
thing
had that haven't. Yeah.
exactly right and that they'll be doing artwork on par of them. And like I mentioned before, Adam Hughes is a one of my favorite artists. He's the one that I was trying to emulate for way too long. But I mean, he didn't go to art school. He drew and he drew and he drew and he drew. He said he got educated at the School of Hard Knocks, and
Hmm.
it obviously worked for him because god damn, the guy's good. I mean, Like
So where can people find you?
let's see. I'm on Twitter at Roger Brunke. That's RogerBrunke, and you'll probably put that like in the description or something, or maybe an annotation.
It's been below you the whole
Oh,
time.
hey, hi there.
Yeah.
I'm on Tumblr, therogzilla at or .tumblr.com. I post stuff on the Rooster Teeth website too. And I'm just Rodzilla on there. Honestly, if you see someone online posting as Rodzilla, there's like probably like
It's probably you.
yeah, there's a 95 unless he was an asshole. If he was an asshole, it wasn't me.
The one who took your Twitter account.
Yeah.
One of these days you'll get verified and then you can just
Yeah,
take it.
yeah. No, I've been tempted to send him messages. Hey, because he's an egg. He doesn't have any tweets
It's one of those damned egg accounts that just sits there. I hate that.
yeah,
That's the
I know.
worst.
But I don't have like anywhere near I mean I could probably go to Twitter and go, hey, all these other accounts mine can I get that one? But I don't think that they'd give a fuck. They go, no, we're too busy verifying Miley Cyrus or something. Whoever.
And so you've been watching this on youtube.com/Tim Leftwich. My name is Tim Leftwich. You can find the audio version of this episode as well as all of the other ones on soundcloud.com/Tim Leftwich. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and as always, we'll see you next time.